Hello, you guys, and happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everyone. What's up, Mena? What's up? May the force be with you. You guys, thank you so much for joining us today. As you see, this is going to be a very important reaction video in regards to uncovering the FBI's failures to do with Scientology's systemic crimes committed against minors. And in this live session, we're going to be peeling back the layers of the FBI's incompetence and complicity in the decades-long saga of Scientology's criminal activities perpetrated on minors, video recorded, transcribed, and literally looped everyone in on. It's a system that does not exist anywhere else on earth, you guys. There is no such thing as audits existing in any other company, in any other so-called religion. Audits are only something that Scientology does. So we're going to start all the way back to before I was even born. Imagine that. We're going to go back to the New York Times that in 77 wrote that the FBI touted that they had a very productive raid against Scientology. But yet today, it fails to follow through on uncovering the true extent of the organization's crimes when it has to do with underage children. It is a disturbing pattern that we're seeing with the FBI, you guys, because we're going to see that pattern repeat itself with the Epstein victims. We're going to see that exact same pattern repeat itself with the U.S. gymnastic victims. So FBI, you have a pattern of not doing anything about helping children, and that is going to get called out. It's the year 2024, and y'all are just sitting there doing nothing while children suffer on y'all's watch, right under your nose. Right under your literal nose, FBI agents. So by all means, advise what in the hell you're doing. We're going to be delving into the uncomfortable truths and asking tough questions about an agency seemingly determined to sabotage investigations into child trafficking and systemic abuse. From the Epstein scandal to the recent revelations about negligence to the U.S. gymnastic team case, it's clear that the FBI has failed in its duty to safeguard the most vulnerable members of these United States. So I thought it was important to really kind of go back to their history, you guys, really investigate what is exactly the history between the FBI and Scientology, so we can really start connecting the dots to everything that doesn't make a shred of literal sense. As we really sit here in this year, how many decades later, you know, completely stuck in a world where nothing has changed. And as you guys know, I always say this saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's what's getting called out at this point. Nothing changes if literally nothing changes. So here is from the New York Times, back in July 9th, 1977. Imagine that, you guys. I had a chance to not be child trafficked. I had a chance to not be transported across state lines from another country and scammed and essayed ad nauseum inside a disgusting hotel chain where no religious experience took place, where slavery was the only thing that was taking place for me and all other children that were stuck and ensnared in those hotels, that the FBI failed abysmally to figure out what in the hell was going on. So let's really take a look at this archive, this digitized version. Washington, July 8th, agents of the FBI carrying buzz saws, sledgehammers, crowbars, and search warrants entered offices of Scientology in Los Angeles this morning in an attempt to recover hundreds of documents allegedly stolen by Scientology operatives from government files. So isn't that great, you guys, that the FBI was so pressed that some papers were missing? Oh, paperwork is missing, you guys. Time to get the sledgehammers. Time to really go get those buzzsaws and crowbars, because you know what? We just found out the government literal documents are missing from the government. So apparently the government only gives an F if you touch a paper. Then they're going to be very pressed and going to bring the sledgehammers and all kinds of things. The raids were undertaken after the Bureau had received information alleging a complex and somewhat bizarre scheme by which Scientology evidently sought to gain an advantage in succession of legal disputes with the Internal Revenue Service and other federal agencies. So isn't that great, you guys? That imagine having this information already. In what world, what changed between 1977 and 1993, pathetic people of the IRS? What changed exactly? Because L. Ron Hubbard's writings could not be altered. L. Ron Hubbard's writings could not be toned down. L. Ron Hubbard's writings could not be touched. So what literally changed between 1977 and 1993? What? What was it that changed? The scheme, as described by the government, including infiltration of Scientology operates into federal agencies, surreptitiously entries into government buildings, and theft of government documents. So are there any OSA operatives that have infiltrated the LAPD? Are there any OSA operatives that have infiltrated the Clearwater Police Department? What changed between 1977 and the year 2024 if L. Ron Hubbard's policies have not changed a shred? Nothing changed since this 1977 article. Imagine that. Imagine that it only actually got worse. Imagine that L. Ron Hubbard wrote more disgusting things like the evil purpose handling rundown, his special rundown for self-admitted PEDOSs. Imagine it just got worse, and the idiots at the FBI couldn't be more clueless or literally dumb. Imagine that. In a statement released this evening, Scientology officially denounced the government's actions as Gestapo police state raid. So now that they get caught infiltrating the government, now the government is the Gestapo. Do you see how this criminal racketeering network works, you guys? These MFers project. That's the only mode that they have. Oh, everybody else is doing something to us, you guys. Like the corrupt, disgusting criminals that they are. Imagine that. It contended that the raid was a reaction to an allegation in a Scientology report that officials of the government and of Interpol, the private French-based police association, were involved in an international narcotics operation. The statement also said that the government's raid was a retaliation for Scientology's attempt of government reforms. Oh my God, you guys. I mean, give it up to Scientology really wanting to, bring order into a narcotics international operation. In what world is a so-called church doing investigations on narcotics? Because that would be really great to fully understand right about now. How in the literal hell is Scientology claiming that they know that there's an international narcotics operation going on between the government and the Interpol? What type of church is literally steeped in that type of info? Scientology was founded in 1950 by L. Ron Hubbard, a writer of science fiction, and now says it has 3.1 million members around the world. Flunk New York Times. Y'all be lying AF. There's never been 3 million followers, you dumb idiots. I mean, imagine the New York Times editorial board typing whatever they get told. Oh, there's 3.1 million, you guys. Just because you bought an idiotic book doesn't make you a member. These hotels didn't want high memberships. They couldn't give an F about the members getting integrated into their scheme. They were recruited. They were hand selected. You qualify, you don't qualify. You qualify, you don't qualify. And most people didn't qualify. Imagine that most people don't even qualify. But here's the New York Times, literally back in 1977, already typing complete and utter misinformation because they could not give a literal shred of an F. It's based on a philosophy that uses various counseling devices to aid its followers in gaining self-knowledge and self-awareness. Wah, wah, wah. Self-awareness of what? Felonies that they're admitting to? Have you committed any felony for which you have not been arrested, New York Times? Are they literally getting the self-awareness of admitting to a felony? Yes or no? If that's the first question that all these people are being asked before they get qualified to really join, what type of self-awareness is really being had by these people? Because that would be a really great thing to start understanding for ourselves. Right about now, we would love to hear how there's some counseling device that aids its followers in gaining self-knowledge and self-awareness. What type of self-knowledge were they getting? Have you committed any felony for which you have not been arrested for? Oh, oops, yes. I essayed my daughter 3 weeks ago. Oh, great. I guess Scientology parents are gaining all manner of self-knowledge and self-awareness that gets then laundered inside of the hotel. Bravo. Amazing work. In recent years, Scientology has initiated several suits against the government, which contends has been improperly keeping organization and its members under surveillance. Improperly? Y'all were trafficking kids since the Shelley Miscavige, David Miscavige days. Underage children. In what world have you not been surveilled? Who are you paying today to have zero oversight? Who's getting paid? Who at the FBI is getting paid? Who is getting paid? Who at the LAPD is getting paid? Who at the Clearwater Police Department is getting paid? Who? It also has waged an extensive and seemingly well-funded campaign to force the government to cut its ties to Interpol. I mean, you guys tell me, in what world is a so-called church working on government cutting ties with Interpol? What type of incentive, what type of Scientology incentive was being accomplished by the government cutting ties with Interpol if they're really all about saving a world, IRS? Because this would have been a great little, due diligence write-up that you should have really read before you took all of the pitches from Marty Rathbun, Mike Rinder, and David Miscavige to heart. Would have been great for you to read this. According to a 33-page affidavit filed in federal district court here in support of the request for the search warrants, persons working on behalf of Scientology also allegedly forged Internal Revenue Service credentials and bugged a conference room in which IRS officials were scheduled to discuss the tax-exempt status of Scientology. So, in what world did the IRS think a lot of change took place between 1977 and 1993? Idiots at the IRS. You complete dumb imbeciles that didn't do a shred of due diligence. Because I guess, you know what? It's 9 to 5 at the IRS and they couldn't give a shred of a literal F. Whatever gets put in their desk, they just rubber stamp it. Because, not even this article, not the ability to pull strings from the IRS, the ability to audit anything. They can't audit shit. They can't even read an article and read through what in the hell's getting pitched. Fewer than half a dozen such operatives were named in the affidavit, and to date, only one of them has been charged with a crime. A bureau official declined to describe the material taken from Scientology offices, except to say that the raids were, quote, extremely productive. So isn't that great, you guys, that the FBI has already literally gone there with crowbars and, with sledgehammers and, pried all the doors open, walked out with boxes and boxes and boxes of what? Physical evidence. For the FBI to be literally giving the New York Times a statement of extremely productive goes to show you how much the FBI knows about what these MFers do. As much as the FBI goes, oh, we don't know anything, shut the F up. Y'all know, and you play dumb. So imagine that for decades you've been playing dumb, and it wouldn't have mattered, FBI. It would not have mattered other than children get effed over. That's why it matters. If not, you know what? Don't do y'all's job. Who cares? Keep all the adults locked up in the hotel. Who literally cares? The information in the affidavit was based mostly on extensive interrogations of a former Scientology official, Michael James Meisner, 27 years old. I wonder when Michael was recruited into Scientology, because it really does show you that it's the adults, grown adults in the room that are the perverse, disgusting degenerates that cannot help themselves but worship L. Ron Hubbard, that literally completely go goo goo gaga for whatever that convicted felon wrote on a piece of literal paper. According to the affidavit, he admitted taking part in many of the acts. Oh, well, you know what, Mike Rinder? Here is something that would be very great for you to learn. Be very, very great for you to learn from Michael James Meisner, 27-year-old, that you know what? When he wrote an affidavit, he wrote the criminal acts that he participated in. And when he wrote that affidavit, it resulted in a raid. And when you write your affidavit, it results in nothing. Imagine being that pathetic and liar at your age. This 27-year-old runs circles around the spine that apparently you don't have. So don't get pressed that you're getting called out with what's literally on the public record. Why does a 27-year-old that wasn't even the OSA master capable of getting the FBI involved? In what world you, as the watchdog committee member of this organization, go to the FBI and nothing happens? Imagine that, because that's what's being juxtaposed. Just for your info. Scientology official, huge Will Hare. Oh, look at this. Will Hare, the guy that went to RTC. The one that Mike Rinder says David Miscavige loves because he's a chronic liar. Isn't that great, Mike Rinder, that you know Hugh Will Hare so well and that you know that he's a complete chronic pathological liar? He said that Mr. Meisner had been connected with Scientology, but that this should not be taken to mean that anything he did was done on behalf of Scientology. I mean, again, you guys, like, these people do not want to face the fact that they are grown adults following the rhetoric of a convicted felon to the letter without a shred of critical thinking, without a shred of common sense, without a shred of guardrails. Whatever L. Ron Hubbard said to do, these people moronically and idiotically apply it and do it completely devoid of any humanity or any common sense. But, you know, leave it to these people to just lie their asses off and pretend that everything is wonderful and everything is great. The raids, which were coordinated to begin at 9 a.m. on the West Coast, were directed against offices in 2125 South Street in Washington and two other locations in Los Angeles. According to the affidavit by Robert Title, a federal Bureau investigation agent, Mr. Meisner reached the Justice Department officials in Los Angeles in May and said that he wanted to turn himself in and cooperate in the government's investigation of the alleged thefts. So for all of you Scientology parents that are running around clueless, we have no idea what to do, you guys. It sucks that you were you, and it sucks that you have not a childhood. Better luck next lifetime. This is what y'all need to go do. Go to the FBI, to the Department of Justice, and say that you want to turn yourselves in and cooperate with the government's ongoing investigations into child trafficking. And if there's no ongoing investigations, tell them to open one because you child trafficked your own kids. It's called put it on your affidavit. Anything else is a pathetic, watered down version of waste all the world time that no child has inside of those hotels, because there's no urgency to do anything. There's only urgency to keep the status quo and keep pretending that everything is wonderful and great and everyone wanted to save a world. Well, you know what? You weren't saving a world for the 10th billionth time by child trafficking kids. You weren't saving a world by becoming fully complicit, full knowing, recording, video recording, transcribing every single admission of Class A felonies, including but not limited to. No salvation took place with those transactions. So come to reality and grow the F up, Scientology parents. Grow the F up. You are not children. You are adults in adult bodies. You have the capacity to consent. All the children that you sold on being adults, they were not adults. They didn't have a capacity to consent, and they didn't know what in the hell you were doing. We couldn't have been more confused. We couldn't have been more bamboozled. We couldn't have been more used as literal pawns in a scheme that is sickening beyond. But apparently, y'all don't find it sickening. Apparently, y'all find it wonderful and great, and you really wanted to save a world because, you know, before David Miscavige took over, you guys, it was such a great party. The affidavit says that during 2 weeks of interrogation by Bureau agents, Mr. Meisner said that his knowledge of the alleged plan dated to 1974, when Scientology officials called for an all-out attack on the IRS. Literally, you guys. I mean, Imagine the idiots at the FBI and the IRS who thought, oh, okay, well, you know what? When was it that you were on an all-out attack of us? Oh, that was in 77. Oh, now it's 1993. Oh, you said you changed a lot. Okay, then yeah. Okay, great. Here's your exemption. Oh, you owe us $1 billion in taxes? Okay, no, let's just erase that. Like no more $1 billion, you know. Oh, you want protections so that no shred of police can come and raid your facilities for child trafficking? No worries. Let me sign it over here. Oh, you want to give tax incentives to self-admitted felons that including but not limited to tell you when they have literally RAP'd their child. No worries. Let me just sign it over here. For every time they admit to a felony in your hotel, we will give them a write-off at the IRS. Let's save a world. You guys are wondering why we're protesting the IRS? Because it doesn't make a shred of sense that with what is on the literal public record already, from literal raids that have already taken place, that have already provided the type of criminal information these MFers are literally writing on themselves. All the people that want to give these people, oh, but you didn't know? BS. They all knew. The problem with Scientology parents and all Scientology executives is that they were all in on it. It's called in Scientology mutual outroots. Mutual outroots is a phrase that they use, you guys. So when people are doing criminal things, then it just basically contaminates everyone. Then everyone starts doing it, and then it gets normalized, and then it gets scaled. So just understand how little it makes sense that with this information from the New York Times, you know, not a YouTuber, not a blogger on the side having an opinion about something, the literal New York Times writes about this raid. This 27-year-old shows all the Scientology people what they're not doing, what it means to take accountability. Not this bullshit, I'm going to do a show, I'm going to blab my mouth. Blabbing your mouth on a show is useless and pathetic. Write a literal affidavit to the FBI and become a cooperating witness. The IRS from time to time had withheld tax-exempt status for certain Scientology subsidiaries on the grounds that it was not satisfied that they met the criteria for exemption. Duh. I mean, literally, guys, please. Duh. Like, could they be more pathetic or dumb? According to the version set forth in the affidavit, a man named Gerald Bennett Wolf was recruited by Scientology members and told to apply for a job at the IRS. And by November 74, he had obtained a job as a clerk typist there. Beginning in the summer of 75, Mr. Wolf allegedly was directed by Mr. Meisner to monitor the files of the IRS sections dealing with exempt organizations. And Mr. Wolf purportedly obtained and copied many of the documents he found there. Mr. Wolf was said to be living with his parents in the Middle West and could not be reached for comment tonight. In 1976, the focus shifted to the Department of Justice and to the staff attorney who was handling Scientology's Freedom of Information suit against Interpol. According to Mr. Meisner's account, a Scientology member succeeded in obtaining a job as a secretary in the Justice Department. Imagine that. Who has infiltrated the Justice Department since? Who? And eventually learned the whereabouts of the files. In the months that followed, the affidavit says Mr. Meisner and Mr. Wolf managed to break into a room at the Internal Revenue Service and make false IRS ID cards for themselves, that they use those cards to gain entrance to a federal courthouse here. You guys, once again, for the 10th gazillion trillion time, nothing changed. The Guardian's office was so-called closed and replaced by the Office of Special Affairs. What type of affairs? How special were those affairs, Mike Rinder? By all means, clarify that shit. Clarify how special were the affairs of your office. At least 3 times in May and June 76, they gained entrance to the courthouse office of an assistant United States attorney, removed stacks of documents from his files, made copies of them in a neighborhood office, and then returned the files according to the affidavit. Are there more OSA operatives infiltrating the state's attorney's office today? Are there any more OSA operatives infiltrating the LAPD today? We already know that they use Marisol Nichols as a honeypot to kneecap the head of the human trafficking division at the LAPD. Duh. So looks like no change in ethics is all we ever see from these people that purport that they really know how to get ethics in, and yet they are literally unable to change a shred because they just do the same shit. They put a little bit of air freshener that might smell different, and then everyone becomes a complete bumbling idiot. On the last of these entries, the affidavit said they were stopped by FBI agents who had been alerted by a suspicious guard. The agents copied down the names of the credentials and then let the 2 men go. Mr. Wolf, who had used his legitimate IRS identification instead of the false one, later was arrested by the FBI. He pleaded guilty to a charge of making a false use of a governmental seal, a felony offense, and was sentenced to 2 years on probation and 2 years of community service for the city of Milwaukee. He apparently did not corroborate Mr. Miser's version of events. Instead, according to the affidavit, he testified in a grand jury to a version that did not implicate Scientology in the thefts. Not great, you guys. That lies, and more lies, and go lie to a grand jury and go lie to everyone because they're all programmed liars inside of that hotel, purporting that they're really going to save a world. So anything they lie is justified because we're saving a world. Aren't we so hand-selected by L. Ron Hubbard? Many are called, few are chosen. Yeah, many are called, few are chosen, because not everybody fits the profile of literal racketeer, child trafficking racketeer, which is what these people were doing behind the scenes already when this was going down. Before anyone ever brought up children, literal Shelly Miscavige, 12-year-old, was already being child trafficked. So imagine that no one gave an F about that back in the day. And that's all it took for this crime to proliferate, to scale at a level that is industrial size scale, at a level that is unthinkable because it's so disgusting and perverse. At a news conference in Los Angeles this afternoon, Von Young, a Scientology official, denied that Mr. Miser had ever been held against his will. And Von Young is somebody that left Scientology later. He was, Stacy, I believe is her name, Stacy Young, another one that did defect later and was calling out all of these criminal racketeering things that they were all about inside of those hotels. He also said that to his knowledge, there's been no documents that Scientology files that have been obtained illegally. I mean, you guys, again, it's like these guys spread a different type of air freshener on their piece of turd. And then they go, oh, you know what? No one can smell it. So yeah, refresher after that. Time warp, you guys. I mean, because again, we always talk about the idea that all of this is state sponsored. This is not a situation where the FBI is so in the dark. They have no idea what these people have been up to, no idea what they do, no idea what's happened. No, we're just so clueless is all we ever get. And speaking of being clueless and corrupt, I really wanted to actually bring up this right here, which is completely appropriate to what we're discussing, which is systemic failure. Top gymnast blast FBI for bungling SA abuse probe. So let's really react to what in the hell happened with the FBI bungling and bungling. It's all we ever get, examples of bungles. Where is them doing their job? Where is them actually not literally bungling? Because we got this and then we got Epstein. They're being sued by these victims of both for their absolute bungling of these probes. In what world does the FBI not know how to conduct a literal investigation? In what world is the FBI relying on children to save themselves? Because that's what in the hell this is giving. You know what? Better luck next lifetime for y'all. And, save yourselves. Because, the FBI is too busy catching flies.
Testimony Wednesday to the Senate Judiciary.
Oops. Not 2x speed, guys. Not the 2x speed. It's already a lot. But yeah, let's go over here what in the hell the FBI did here.
Committee about the FBI's failure to stop serial sexual abuser, USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar. Lawyers say in the time between when the FBI was first told of Nassar's crimes and his 2016 arrest, Nassar abused another 120 people. FBI Director Christopher Wray apologized to the gymnasts in the Senate hearing. Last week, the FBI fired an agent involved in the investigation into Nassar. Both the gymnasts and senators on the Judiciary Committee called out Justice Department leadership for failing to appear at Wednesday's hearing.
Imagine that. Justice Department leadership cannot even bother to come. They're chasing flies. Oh my God, it's another day to chase another fly. Let the pedos do whatever they want to do to kids. The FBI could not care any less. Why go? Why go? Just what? A bunch of women complaining? Is that what the FBI is all about? Is that why we pay the FBI? Is that what the power of the FBI literally boils down to? Better luck next lifetime? To all children, save yourselves. Figure it out yourselves. Don't bother us. We're chasing flies. We're too busy chasing flies.
Attorney General Merrick Garland is expected to testify next month. This is the testimony of Simone Biles, the four-time Olympic gold medalist who is widely considered to be the greatest gymnast of all time.
Over the course of my gymnastics career, I have won 25 world championship medals and 7 Olympic medals for Team USA. That record means so much to me, and I am proud of my representation of this nation through gymnastics. I am also a survivor of sexual abuse, and I believe without a doubt that the circumstances that led to my abuse and allowed it to continue are directly the result of the fact that the organizations created by Congress to oversee and protect me as an athlete, USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee failed to do their jobs. Nelson Mandela once said, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children.
I mean, imagine that this is how America treats its children. Help yourself. Figure it out yourself. Stop bothering us. Stop bringing it up. We couldn't care any less. Even when they pretend to care, then they go ahead and bungle it. So imagine the type of reflection that this is truly given here at this point. Systemic failure.
It is the power of that statement that compels and empowers me to be here in front of you today. I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse.
I mean, again, you guys, it's one thing to be a child survivor of SA, to see the daily nightmare that that crime perpetuates. Cannot turn it off. You cannot silence it. You cannot mitigate it. You literally have to go to therapy and figure out coping mechanisms, healthy coping mechanisms, because there is no running away from that abuse. And it's the nightmare that presents itself on a daily basis in our lives. Why in the hell we keep speaking despite being ignored, despite not being taken seriously, despite these people being given millions and millions of dollars to do their job, 6-figure salary, cushy jobs from hell, while children are told, help yourself. We don't give an F. Oh, you were SA'd? Who cares? Who cares if you were SA'd? You signed a contract, right? A $1 billion contract? Then why the hell are you calling the FBI? Why do you think we owe you anything at the FBI? Because I was transported from another country and then sent across state lines to another state. So I could be trafficked inside of a motherfucking hotel. That's why. And because there's a pattern of thousands of kids that have all suffered the same exact fate, with nothing being done to mitigate it, with nothing being done to rein it back. Kids continue to be exposed, put in harm's way by their own literal parents, while everyone plays dumb and dumber. And now it's our responsibility to speak out on this, because we're very perfectly aware how silent it was while the abuse was taking place to us. We know how silent those hallways in Scientology are for any kids that get essayed and they get told that it was their fault. Oh, you must have tutti flowed the person. You must have really tutti flowed that adult. Tutti flowed that adult. Make it make sense, FBI. By all means, make yourself start making a shred of sense.
To be clear, sorry.
Take your time.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee knew that I was abused by their official team doctor long before I was ever made aware of their knowledge.
I mean, again, you guys, is the enablers. Why are we protesting the enablers? Why? Why are we protesting the enablers? This type of crime cannot take place without it being enabled. It requires the cooperation, it requires the knowledge, and it requires scheming, carefully crafted crisis management policies and procedures that are fully in place for it to happen, for these girls to have what happened to them. And then imagine in the Scientology hotels, where there wasn't just one Larry Nassar. And I mean, never mind that there's how many other coaches of this U.S. gymnastics that we don't even know are in that same boat. Because what is it that these predators get told at all times, you guys? Under this guise that this country is very much about, oh, due process. The due process is never made available to the victim. And they're so pressed to, oh my God, God forbid, we actually send a message of accountability. We actually send a message that you will be found, you will get caught, and you will be dealt with consequences. Where's that message? It doesn't exist. The message does not exist because all predators get told is, look how hard it was for Larry Nassar to get caught. Was he really the only one? The only one out of all of that? He needed enablers. He needed people to vouch for him. In the case of us inside Scientology, all adults were vouching for this ludicrous idea that self-admitted felonies, including but not limited to self-admission of literally minors being raped, was something that they could float. Because L. Ron Hubbard wrote that on a piece of paper. Oh, my technology is so wonderful and amazing that it will float. So imagine the level of impunity, the level of full knowing the facts, full having admissions, full having it on video recorded tape, transcribed with notes, copious notes that are taking place as the crime is being revealed inside a hotel room. Was Larry Nassar also being video recorded doing this to these girls? No. It's unheard of that people would be doing this. But yet in the blackmail system that Scientology used to operate its BS so-called self-awareness therapy, that's all you ever get.
In May of 2015, Rhonda Fayan, the former head of USA Gymnastics women's program, was told by my friend and teammate, Maggie Nichols, that she suspected I, too, was a victim. I didn't understand the magnitude of what all was happening until the Indianapolis Star published its article in the fall of 2016, entitled, Former USA Gymnastics Doctor Accused of Abuse. Yet while I was a member of the 2016 U.S. Olympic team, neither USAG, USOPC, nor the FBI ever contacted me or my parents. While others had been informed and investigations were ongoing, I had been left to wonder why I was not told until after the Rio Games. This is the largest case of sexual abuse in the history of American sport. And although there have been a fully independent investigation of the FBI's handling of the case, neither USAG nor USOPC have ever been made the subject of the same level of scrutiny. These are the entities entrusted with the protection of our sport and our athletes, and yet it feels like questions of responsibility and organizational failures remain unanswered.
Well, isn't that great, you guys, that the people that were signing up to legally acquire minors at an industrial size scale, Mike Rinder, in case you fail to notice what your pitch was to the IRS, it was that one. You wanted to have no guardrails, no questions asked. You can grab whoever at whatever age for whatever. And now you're nowhere to be found to answer anything that makes a shred of sense, because all you do is shuffle your feet and pretend that blabbing your mouth is helping anybody other than yourself, purporting that you really want to save another world by what? What guardrails have been instituted on minors being audited, Mike Rinder? Nothing. What guardrails have been instituted on minors getting ethics handled, Mike Rinder? Nothing. What guardrails have been set up so no minor ever ends up inside a disgusting course room getting groomed to normalize these disgusting role plays that are so egregious and disgusting and indefensible that y'all should be ashamed of yourselves, but yet the shame is nowhere to be found. Not great, you guys, that there's no shame. And it's not just Mike Rinder. Of course, it's not just you, Mike Rinder. It's you and the rest of your cohorts. Everyone in your OSA office that was doing your bidding. Everyone in your flag service organization, Debbie Cook, that was doing your bidding. Y'all ran a whole pyramid of accomplices. You were the ones that were running. You were the ones that were directing all orders. Everything was to be approved by y'all. That's what L. Ron Hubbard told you to do. That's what L. Ron Hubbard told you to be an executive. You have to be like that. So if you didn't like who you became, blame it on L. Ron Hubbard and spare us your BS sob story and your crocodile tears that you're not even capable of shedding because you have no shame. You feel nothing other than launder your BS image to purport that, you know, everything is great and wonderful and we're going to save a world if we just keep what? Playing dumb on purpose?
As you pursue the answers to those questions, I ask that your work be guided by the same question that Rachel Denhollander and many others have asked. How much is a little girl worth? I sit before you today to raise my voice so that no
How much are all children ensnared in those hotels worth? Because you know what? We weren't worth the pathetic $47 that they were paying us. We weren't worth adults gaining access to us by blocks of 12 and a half hours where we were told that we had to sit there and listen to whatever in the F they wanted to talk about. That was not our worth. That is not the worth of any child that's stuck and snared inside of those hotels, put there by their Scientology parent, pitching to them that they're going to be helped by being abused. So yes, in our case, our life sucks even more. Our parents were co-conspirators of Mike Rinder. Our parents were cohorts of Mike Rinder. Our parents were full knowing what was being done to us. They weren't in the dark like the U.S. gymnastics team where they thought they were going to go to a doctor, but then turns out this guy was a complete disgusting degenerate. Our parents knew that we were going to be locked up in this disgusting role place, and they thought, aren't you going to go free? Aren't you going to love being in this extreme environment where you're going to be asked disgusting questions and go find in another lifetime if you've ever, you know, literally committed a felony that's being committed on you today as a child? Because you know what? That makes a lot of sense. A 12-year-old is told that the reason that they've been raped is because in another lifetime they did that to someone else. What type of spiritual technology is that?
little girl must endure what I, the athletes at this table, and the countless others who needlessly suffered under Nasser's guise of medical treatment, which we continue to endure today. We suffered and continue to suffer because no one at FBI, USAG, or the USOPC did what was necessary to protect us.
Yeah. And in our case, no one in RTC did anything to protect us. No one in OSA did anything to protect us. No one in FSO did anything to protect us. No one in FLB did anything to protect us. No one in CMO did anything to protect us. Those are all Scientology so-called entities, so-called superior, great, amazing oversight entities that are really going to save our world. Those entities were finding out about everything that happened and then literally laundering it, then literally sabotaging, perverting any type of course of justice for that child or victim. Again, they tell the victim the reason this disgusting abuse happened is because they did it to someone else in another life. What type of parent can be okay with that? And they all know that that was the pitch from L. Ron Hubbard. So if they try to play dumb, oh, I've never thought about it like that, it was all over L. Ron Hubbard's rhetoric that they all read, that they all did the course. This was done on them. Imagine that they had the first-hand reality of that being done on them. And they thought, well, my child's just an adult, so must apply to him as well. Aren't I doing him a favor? Aren't I really elevating my child to what? To what exactly are these parents elevating their children? Because that was the pitch. Oh, you're so lucky to be born. No. You're so lucky to have chosen to be born in a Scientology family because you were floating and then you went into the body that you chose. So you chose us as your parents to be doing this. So if you don't like it, blame yourself as well. That's how children of Scientology parents are spoken to.
We have been failed and we deserve answers. Nasser is where he belongs, but those who enabled him deserve to be held accountable. If they are not, I am convinced that this will continue to happen to others across Olympic sports.
And again, it's the fact that it continues to happen, you guys. It's the fact that we are blowing the whistle on the systemic failure and institutionalized mockery of what these people do. Because it's not enough that Miriam's dad goes to jail. That wouldn't solve nothing. It's not enough that my abusers go to jail. That wouldn't solve nothing. The reason the abuse took place, the reason we were placed in harm's way is what needs to be confronted. The enablers that made that environment a safe environment for self-admitted pedos to have unfettered access to children is the environment that needs to be resolved. There's not a once upon a time somebody did a bad thing and okay, let's put him in jail and case closed. But all we ever get is the bare minimum. Oh yeah, okay, Larry Nassar's in jail. Who else? Nobody. So help yourself and do it. Enable it. Who cares? No one's going to ever touch you anyways, is the message, right? Ghislaine Maxwell, the same. Okay, Ghislaine's in jail. Who was purchasing the trafficking of those minors? Who was paying to have access to that island? The same thing applies to the Scientology people. Who was paying to have access to that hotel? Who was paying to get write-offs from the IRS so you could have long-term vacations inside of that disgusting hotel where you had the ability to hand select what child audited you? I mean, literally children being put to service adults. And yes, that's what they called it. Go service that adult. Are you happy with your services? Do you like how he's servicing you? Sick.
In reviewing the OIG's report, it truly feels like the FBI turned a blind eye to us and went out of its way to help protect USAG and USOPC.
I mean, again, you guys, in what world are corporations getting shielded? In what literal world is the FBI shielding the acronym and literally dehumanizing all the victims that were coming forward, that have been abused since they were so young, whose abuse is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives? This is why we're sounding the alarm code red. This cannot still continue to be done to other children. What part of that is so difficult to grasp? What literal part of that is difficult to understand? We wouldn't be here speaking, screaming at the top of our lungs what in the literal hell is going on if children were not at risk.
A message needs to be sent. If you allow a predator to harm children, the consequences will be swift and severe. Enough is enough.
That's Simone Biles, the four-time Olympic gold medalist, testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee Wednesday about the FBI's failure to stop serial sexual abuser, USA gymnastics doctor, now imprisoned Larry Nassar. Biles mentioned Rachel Den Hollander, who in 2016 was the first gymnast to publicly speak out against Nassar. On Thursday, Rachel Den Hollander spoke to Democracy Now!
I am so proud of the athletes who testified and the light that they're shedding in these dark spaces. But to see over and over and over again the depth of systemic failure and just the incredible damage that was done to them and to all of the survivors who came after they reported when that didn't need to happen is a very heavy burden to bear. And I think something we need to be asking as we're watching this unfold is, what are we not seeing? Because the reality is most survivors of sexual assault who report will tell you that this is a story that they could tell too. It is very difficult to get law enforcement to take reports of sexual assault seriously, to pursue the case with diligence, to prosecute it to the fullest extent of the law. And we need to start looking at what we saw yesterday and ask what we're not seeing. What happens to the survivors who don't have an army of 500 women? What happens to the survivors who don't have Olympians headlining their case and raising the profile of the gross negligence and the corruption that's taking place in our system? In 15 months, the FBI did absolutely nothing except allow over 100 little girls to continue being abused. So we need to be looking at what has to change in this case, but it's not just a problem with this case. We've got to start asking what's got to change in the system, so that survivors that we don't see aren't going through what these women went through, and have a justice system that they can truly rely on. Those are hard questions, but they've got to be asked. And these words are cheap if they're not followed by action.
That's Rachel Den Hollander.
The words are cheap. They're nothing but platitudes. They're nothing but contributing to the systemic problem. Like, what is it going to take? What is everyone refusing to see? How much more clear can we be about what we're sounding the alarm on? I mean, again, you guys, like with the FBI, starting with the FBI, y'all have the files from your raid. You understand the level of meticulous evidence being kept by our child traffickers. The literal files they kept on us as we were getting abused. But there is no diligence. There is no taking it seriously. There is not giving a literal shred of an F. Because again, it's just sucks to be you, and better luck next lifetime is about the only thing you see from these people. So again, if you're a 12-year-old kid getting essayed in America, the FBI wants you to save yourself, advocate for yourself, and figure it out for yourself, just like we had to do.
The first gymnast to speak out publicly against Larry Nassar. For more, we're joined by Mark Alicia, who Den Hollander first contacted in 2016 when he was part of the investigative team at the Indianapolis Star. She told him, quote, "I'm willing to do anything you need. I want this to end." Mark's team then broke the story about Dr. Nassar's abuse. He is now director of university communications at Indiana State University. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Mark. We talked to you just after Nassar's trial and sentencing, that remarkable moment when one woman, one gymnast after another stood up and talked about how he had wrecked their lives, but talked about surviving.
I mean, yeah. We've seen these examples. We're seeing it with Paris Hilton standing up for how many kids that are being abused in the troubled teen industry. And, you know, how many of us here from SBTV that were abused as children that are here standing up. Literally, we haven't gone to Congress, but we're here speaking to all of you and raising awareness and explaining what we're raising the alarm on. What matters to us? What is unacceptable that is still being done with a straight face while everyone plays dumb? because that's all these people get, to play dumb and to, oh, okay, I didn't know that I was abusing and committing felonies at an industrial size scale. Well, now you know. It's the year 2024. So if you thought you weren't committing felonies at an industrial size scale, double check, Scientology parents. Double check. Check with a criminal attorney. Go check. Go call. What is called when you bring a child from another country, you tell them to lie to the immigration office, you pull them out of school, you lock up their passports, and then you charge $500 an hour while adults get to hand select them for their time. Check with a criminal attorney what the hell that's called. Because if that criminal attorney tells you, oh, that sounds like a very religious experience that the child is having, I would question the sanity of that idiot that you just called. Call another one until you get the right answer. Somebody that can really actually tell you what in the hell's going on instead of you just playing Bozo the Clown all the time. Because you know what? Nobody has bandwidth for you to keep playing Bozo the Clown. Nobody literally cares. You followed L. Ron Hubbard. You followed him to the letter. You did everything that disgusting convicted felon told you to do. Well, check with a criminal attorney if that was a good idea for you to be doing that. Check that really quick. It will take a quick phone call. And then, yes, you'll probably have to pay a ton of retainer because you'll get an advocate. A criminal one is what you need. A criminal advocate.
Now we have the top gymnasts, some of the most famous women in the world, like Simone Biles, testifying before the Senate. They specifically focused on the FBI. Tell us this story from the beginning. You were there. How is it that the FBI dropped the ball so completely? And are we going to see criminal charges against FBI agents?
Well, I don't know if we're going to see those charges, but I think it was Senator Leahy who said there are a whole lot of people who ought to be in jail after this.
I mean, more cheap words like Miss Hollander just referred to. A lot of people that ought to be this and a lot of people that ought to be that. But then where are we today? Where's the rest of the enablers gone? They're nowhere to be found. No one really suffered any consequences. Larry Nassar barely got what he deserved. Barely. And, you know, the FBI is what? Gonna now pay to resolve its lawsuits, getting sued. So hopefully it hurts the FBI to pay. I mean, who in the hell cares, I guess? I mean, don't they have unlimited funds? Don't they get all, they're paying what we pay them? So you're working at the FBI, you're getting all this taxpayer money, and then you're not doing your job. And then when you get sued, you just use everything that you've been paid by the taxpayers for not doing your job to then, okay, well then here you go. As if money is what anybody gives an F about. What are these girls worried about? What is their concern? That their enablers and the systems in place that allow this to happen get rein back. That real change takes place so that it's not just willy-nilly abuse as many kids as you get unfettered access to. But we're not making a lot of progress. I mean, yes, the FBI is getting sued. Great. At least there's some sort of accountability. I'm sure they're not thrilled to get sued. And now it's in the public record. Now we can see when we are calling them out that it's not just like, oh, you know, y'all are just too pressed because you just got child trafficked. But, you know, usually everyone else would have gotten help. Where are the examples of them doing the job that they're paid to do with 6-figure salaries plus? And then they get to what? Bungle it all and then tap into the taxpayer money to pay back something because they're going to really care?
What happened was the FBI did not take the gymnast complaints seriously. They didn't, offices in different cities didn't communicate with each other. And there were conflicts of interest. There was an FBI agent who was talking to the president of USAG, Steve Penny, about getting a job.
So what type of conflicts of interest exist at the LAPD today for no literal investigation to be taken seriously? what's being done about that? I mean, as if Miriam doesn't even have her own father on tape admitting. But yeah, the LAPD could not be more bothered to have to do a shred of job. They couldn't care any less.
With the U.S. Olympic Committee. Now, and in that they were so chummy that in one of the emails, Steve Penny told the FBI agent that he would like to, quote, body slam the reporters, myself, Marissa, and Tim.
I mean, if that doesn't just tell you what the culture is. So let me get this straight. The executives that were covering up for Larry Nassar are chummy with the FBI? Oh, isn't that great, you guys, that we have another parallel in the Scientology situationship? Who else is chummy with the LAPD? Who else is chummy with the Clearwater Police Department? Chummy. That's exactly what the word is for these people. Chummy, chummy, chummy. Imagine being the FBI and being chummy with child abusers. I mean, what type of disgusting people would they have to be to not see the problem with that? Even criminals, even the ones that are in jail, already convicted, indicted, even in that hierarchy, who is at the very lowest of lowest? That's right. Child abusers. You cannot go any lower than that. There is no merit. If you're literally grabbing kids and abusing them, manipulating them, gaslighting them, tokenizing them, essaying them, and then telling them it's their fault, what type of criminal are you? The most disgusting, grossest kind of criminal. But unfortunately, apparently, allegedly, the FBI is just chummy, writing on emails, la, 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 la. So imagine the type of chummy communications happening between OSA and all of these agencies that have been apparently effectively fully kneecapped. It couldn't be more ineffective if they weren't literally getting paid to be ineffective, if they weren't literally getting paid to not do a job, because they just do not care. There's no consequences. There's no right and wrong for them. According to them, no right and wrong. So what in the hell are all the platitude laws that purport to really give a guideline as to what not to do? If those guidelines are just collecting dust, if those guidelines are just a literal piece of paper that no one gives an F about, then that's all we have. That's literally all we have. Guidelines that no one gives an F about. They'll just hire lying ass attorneys that will say whatever in the hell stupidity, and then everyone takes them at their word. Oh, no, Your Honor, Scientology is very religious. Shut the F up. Have you ever even read what L. Ron Hubbard proposed? No, but I got told by Mike Rinder and David Miscavige and also Marty Rathbun that Scientology was really going to save a world. Well, you maybe do some fucking due diligence, or maybe stop being an attorney, because maybe you'll lose your law license if you do no shred of due diligence. Or maybe not, right? Because maybe who cares? Just continue making money, continue child trafficking kids. This is America, the land of let's make child slavery great again and again and again and again. Because the Constitution that said that slavery was abolished is another platitude on the book of platitudes. Modern day slavery of children is alive and well. And you can thank Scientology for being, a case study of that exact child enslavement and torture. Just make it a case study. Why not?
That's Steve Penny. And by the way, he's one of the people who isn't in jail.
So let's talk about why Indianapolis is so important. You mentioned the U.S. Olympic Committee. Talk about who first came forward to the FBI and what happened to that complaint.
That would have been, I believe, Michaela Maroney very early on. She wasn't taken seriously. I think she testified that the agent said, that's it.
So let's go. I want to go to the Olympic gold medalist Michaela Maroney testifying before the Senate Wednesday.
This was very clear cookie cutter pedophilia and abuse. And this is important because I told the FBI all of this, and they chose to falsify my report and to not only minimize my abuse, but silence me yet again. I thought
again, you guys, cookie cutter PDF files is what you find in Scientology. Cookie cutter. How many kids have come forward to talk about the issue of being essayed inside of these hotels? I've not been the only one. I'm far from the only one. Far, 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 far from. There's been so many before that came before me. And there's been so many that have come after me. There's been lawsuits filed. And yet nothing is taken seriously whatsoever. It's all just better luck next lifetime.
given the severity of this situation, that they would act quickly for the sake of protecting other girls.
That's the part that hurts the most. To imagine how hard are they making it for us, the ones that have to go through that BS and still feel so powerless because there's no guardrails instituted inside of the disgusting hotels. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in Scientology. Nothing can change. L. Ron Hubbard said it was illegal to change a single word he wrote. So let that fully sink in for everyone that wants to go, well, I'm sure they don't do the same thing. In what world do they not do the same thing? You cannot change L. Ron Hubbard's audit. You cannot change L. Ron Hubbard's ethics handlings, and you cannot change how to administer the disgusting grooming courses that L. Ron Hubbard, convicted felon, pitched to be done and get certificates. And ensnare kids. Instead of going to school, why don't you go get your L. Ron Hubbard certificate? Because that's going to really be great for you to be doing that with adults inside hotel rooms. All endorsed by all Scientology parents.
But instead, it took them 14 months to report anything when Larry Nassar, in my opinion, should have been in jail that day. The FBI, USOC, and USAG sat idly by as dozens of girls and women continued to be molested by Larry Nassar.
And I mean, imagine here, you guys, that in Scientology, the only platitude and delusion that they go with is, oh, but we're going to handle the ethics, you guys. We're really going to find out every single time, place, form, and event of the exact felony. And then what? They give the PDF file a literal out on how the hotel is the environment that's going to float it with a very special technology that they have for themselves in there.
So, Mark Alicia, talk about how you got involved, the tip, how you ended up going down to Louisville to interview Rachel Den Hollander.
My teammates and I, Marissa Kwiatkowski and Tim Evans at the Indianapolis Star, we did a story. The first one was right on the eve of the Rio Olympics in 2016. And after that story came out, we received an email from Rachel saying I wasn't abused by a coach, but this was a doctor. And if you're interested, I will speak out, and I will speak out by name. I drove down to Louisville and I interviewed Rachel. She came off as intelligent, sincere, passionate, utterly credible.
Then a lawyer and a mother of three.
And a lawyer and mother of four now, I believe. And yes, everything. And what really, I think, bothers me, it angers me. It doesn't just bother me. It's 5 years after that. It's 5 years after that. And those women had to show up in front of a congressional committee and bare their soul again to make people understand what happened. These survivors, 5 years later, they are still looking for answers. They are still looking for justice. And that's outrageous. And there's another piece to this, too. The survivors also have been trying unsuccessfully to get Michigan State University to release 6,000 pages of documents from an investigation into Nassar that they are withholding because of attorney-client privilege.
Now, this is amazing. Michigan State, the president has had to resign, but he wasn't criminally charged. That's where the, U.S. Olympic Committee's Dr. Nassar worked at Michigan State. And he abused these girls, these young women, for decades.
Right. And it's also important to understand that for about maybe 10 or 15 years earlier, adults or gymnasts had come forward, 2 adults, to complain about Nassar. But it always went nowhere. And that included one situation with a law enforcement department.
I mean, again, you guys, we have come forward. We let it be known. The children that came forward about their abuse inside of Scientology hotels got told that they pulled it in. So imagine that. Imagine that they were told that, oh, this was your fault. This was your fault. Don't you see what's your fault? Don't you see that you were 2D flowing? Don't you see that you pulled it in? Don't you see that this was a motivator? Don't you see that this is out ethics? Don't you see that there was a policy that said don't have any 2D with anybody, and then you, the child, decided to go and have a 2D? And that's why I always keep going back to the terms, because the terms are the things that create the disgusting, depraved, unthinkable culture that takes place in those hotels. The utterly inappropriate, indefensible. It's indefensible to be teaching children a word that means nothing inside of any other building in the world except for theirs. And when the word happens to be the one euphemism that they're covering all essay under this blank umbrella of like out to the, then just really let it sink in how disgusting this is, how there is no good faith in the argument of these people trying to just go with, oh, well, we thought we were to really save a world. How is that possible? And again, it's like, make it make sense in this year, 2024. How are you really saving anything? How can you purport that you were there with the best intentions? That's like Jeffrey and Ghislaine saying, oh, but we thought we were going to really save people by bringing them to the island and having them abuse children. When really they were blackmailing them, taking money out of them, and using this entire blackmail operation as a circle and wheel of criminality racketeering.
It included a Michigan State coach, a gymnastics coach. It included people who couldn't possibly believe that that great, wonderful Larry Nassar could do such a thing. Adults had failed these children at every level. This is just an absolute tragedy. And again, it is outrageous.
And yes, all Scientology adults have failed us miserably at every level, at every point. Still today, all they do is project, and try to make themselves the victim. Oh, look at me, I'm such a victim. You're not a victim. You were bringing children there. You were ensnaring them. You were paying, you were donating, you were enabling it to happen at an industrial size scale. So in what world are you really the victim when you were bringing the children there to be abused and you knew it? And since you left, where is your repudiation? Where is the thing that you feel bad about? Oh, I got scammed out of $1 million. It sucks to be me. We really need to stop adults getting scammed for $1 million. These people love paying $1 million for whatever in the hell's being done to them inside of the hotels. These people love having unfettered access to underage kids. You can find underage kids in every last org of the planet as of today, FBI, because since y'all haven't decided to surveil jack nothing, thanks to all the protesters, thanks to all the streamers, we have plenty of evidence that the induction of minors into these commercial buildings and hotels is alive and well and hasn't changed. Why would it? In what world could it change? In what world could it, oh no, let's not use children anymore because what? No. Kids are being audited, kids are being sec checked, kids are being given ethics handlings, kids are literally being abused with full impunity, and everybody knows it, and everyone is playing dumb. As of the year 2024, they don't want to hear it that Owen Hubbard was and is a convicted felon that didn't have a shred of good idea. All these idiots that go, oh, but he did have a good idea here. In what world is a convicted felon pitching to lock up a child against their will inside of a hotel? Somebody that really had to pitch a lot of other great things. What type of great ideas were really had by that disgusting man?
That 5 years later, it's still going on with so many unanswered questions and so many people who are responsible for allowing Nasser to continue going without being held accountable.
I want to go to the 3-time Olympic gold medal gymnast, 2-time Olympic team captain Ali Raisman testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee Wednesday.
It is unrealistic to think we can grasp the full extent of culpability without understanding how and why USAG and USOPC chose to ignore abuse for decades.
Chose to ignore. In the case of Scientology, they chose to become complicit in it by data mining it. They decided to monetize it by becoming fully aware of the when, what, how.
And why the interplay among these 3 organizations led the FBI to willingly disregard our reports of abuse.
Why has the LAPD willingly disregarded all reports of abuse? Why has the Clearwater Police Department disregarded every reported abuse?
Without knowing who knew what when, we cannot identify all enablers or determine whether they are still in positions of power.
And lucky for us in Scientology, we can. We can very easily figure out where is this person? Who did this? You guys, when I tell you that these Scientology files represent a literal roadmap on this date, this person did a blowjob in this bathroom on the 4th floor. The blowjob lasted 4 minutes. The person did this, the person did that, then the person did this again, and then this person did that, and then this happened, and then this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Time, place, form, and event, exactly everything. On a tape, they have the confession from the perpetrator, and then they pull in the child to get interrogated and ask questions. Oh, we need to give you an ethics handling. Come with me. Come with me. I'm going to put you on the meter. The child doesn't know what in the hell's going on. Child's not going to get told why he's getting an ethics handling. They just get told, you come with me. Why? Because I need to see you in ethics. They grab the child, lock him up. In the case of Marty Rathbun, in a bank vault. And then they start barraging you with their disgusting questions. Have you done something disgusting? Have you done something sexually that you don't want anyone to know about? Is there something about you that you've done sexually that you wouldn't want me to find out about? Is there something you're embarrassed about? Is there something you don't want to talk about? Is there something you don't want to say? Is there something that you want to keep to yourself only? Is there something that you're afraid would get you into ethics trouble if you tell us? So where's their plausible deniability? I'm asking as a serious question, where is it? All of these enablers, where is your plausible deniability if you were systemically laundering all the felonies that you were so pressed to really find out about? Because, oh yeah, nothing like finding out about a felony to really save a world.
We just can't fix a problem we don't understand.
And that's so true. We cannot fix a problem we don't understand. The problem hasn't even been called out. The problem is children end up ensnared in audits, in sec checks, in ethics handlings, and in disgusting grooming courses that are not age appropriate whatsoever. It's called everything is quintuple, triple X rated from hell. Everything is hardcore scene from hell. We're talking about role plays where a child cannot have a single shred of safe word. A child cannot say stop. A child cannot say, I don't want to do this anymore. A child will be punished and locked up for longer if they complain about what's taking place in the so-called audit. So just really keep that in mind. In what world are extreme role plays with no boundaries safe to give to children? We are here to testify that they're not safe for children whatsoever. We're here to inquire in what literal world were we brought from another country to serve as slaves, to be used as dominatrix for adults that were paying $500 plus to get dominated by children.
And we can't understand the problem unless and until we have all of the facts.
And that's why we're exposing all these facts, you guys, because how else are the facts going to get exposed if all the Scientology parents want to just play victim every time they open their mouth? It's about them. I had a hard time. They did this thing really bad to me. What did you do? How many children did you ensnare? What happened to your kids? Did your kids end up in the Sea Org? Yes or no? How old were they when they ended up in the Sea Org? How old were they when they started to get audited? How old were they when they were being given ethics handlings? How old were they when they were exposed to so-called disgusting child trafficking grooming courses? How many children did you get serviced by? How much money did you pay to get work cleared by a child, to get ethics handled by a child, to get audited by a child, to get sec checked by a child? Those are the facts. Those are the facts. You want to know what Scientology is? That. Scientology's audits, ethics handlings, and courses. Scientology is nothing else. All this BS about CNU and all this shit, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. Everything is the child's going to get locked up and going to be asked disgusting questions. It's going to be groomed to go through this role play. You're the auditor. You're the PC. You're the dom. You're the sub. We don't call it dom. We don't call it sub. We call it auditor and PC. auditor is going to handcuff the PC. I mean, put the cans on his hands and tell that child that they cannot move. Tell that child, keep the cans quiet. Don't move. You have to ask me for permission if you want to move while I'm asking a question, because otherwise, God forbid, I don't see what in the hell the machine is saying. It's sickening. It's sickening beyond. It's unacceptable beyond. It's not hard to understand what's hard about this. It's not hard to understand what needs to be advocated for.
If we don't do all we can to get these facts, the problems we are here to address will persist. And we are deluding ourselves if we think other children can be spared the institutionalized tolerance and normalization of abuse that I and so many others had to endure.
That is three-time Olympic gold medal gymnast, two-time Olympic team captain Ali Raisman, who has really been the forceful leader of this movement to bring Nassar down, but not only him, because as Simone Biles says, the whole system is broken. But
I mean, again, you guys, because none of these crimes happen in a vacuum. It just doesn't happen like that. You don't have this level of amount of victims without these predators not being enabled to prey. And there's plenty of other examples where there aren't child predators. The child predators see, oh, I'm going to get in trouble here. Let me not be here. These predators are not idiots. They know what they need. They know the type of environment. They know the temperature. They know everything about who they need to go and grab. And in Scientology, they had it on video recording. They had all the data mining for it. They had all the psychological profile of the person to be able to have all of it go their way.
interestingly, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, did not appear, though the head of the Justice Department was asked to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Apparently, he's going to appear in October. Christopher Wray did, the head of the FBI, and apologized, though he said he wasn't there at the time. He said it was abhorrent what had taken place. What do you make of this, Mark?
Well, I just, again, I feel so badly for the survivors. I believe it was Ali Raisman who said it's going to take her months just to get over the experience of testifying before the committee, but I'm sure she felt she had a duty to do that. And I would hope that the people at the very top of our judicial system will recognize their duty to these women who have represented our country so well on an international stage. But, you know, I think it's also important, Rachel Den Hollander, kind of typically for her, she can cut straight to the crux of an issue, but she's not just looking at abuse in gymnastics. She is talking about the ordeal of women who report sexual assaults and what they go through in all walks of life.
And I'm going to expand that, you guys, because the ordeal of men who report. Do you know how underreported men SA is? Do you know what a thriving field is for these people to abuse men, and that even gets less reported? Men even get taken less serious, and no one gives an F. So yes, women get abused, and yes, innocent boys get abused. It's both. And the predators prey on both. They don't discriminate. They don't give an F. They have a victim, they're going to prey on them.
Especially, I mean, you're talking about gold medalists, world-renowned women. If they are not taken seriously, what is everyone else supposed to think? Last point, Mark Alicia, and it's one you made with us right after the trial, is that these women came forward. It's not like they run track where it's very clear who wins first, second, and third. The whole sport is judged by committees. And that's where they were incredibly brave in coming forward, because when you rock the boat, these committees don't have to take your scores, your speeds. They can decide if you're a troublemaker or not and ice you out.
I mean, again, you guys, in terms of Scientology, any child coming forward on their abuse would be judged and would be blamed. I mean, there's no way out for these kids that are ensnared inside of there. And that's why it matters that we do bring it up and that we do call it out. Because the only reason they are going and getting away with it is because it doesn't get called out and people play dumb. Lorna Huddleston, psychotherapy is not evil, especially because L. Ron Hubbard thinks they are the devil. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. I went back to college after I split Scientology. Therapy can help. Well, nice to meet you, Lorna, and thank you for your comment. Yeah, psychotherapy is not evil. And L. Ron Hubbard didn't think that they were the devil. So breaking news to you, L. Ron Hubbard and his proteges wanted no child to have a shred of access to mandated reporter. So this complete BS talking point about how, oh yeah, the psychiatrists are so bad, you guys, is just more of the misinformation campaign that was done so that no child could ever end up in the hands of a mandated reporter. So I agree that therapy can help. I mean, therapy is the only thing that can help you at that point. Never mind that it's so hard, because nothing in Scientology was therapeutic. Nothing in Scientology was therapeutic. We had therapies done to us as children, so-called therapies. Imagine literally engaging in sadomasochism with a child and calling that therapeutic. And if you don't think that auditing is sadomasochistic, then explain how in the world getting locked up without the ability to leave is not that. Why there is no common sense boundaries allowed between an auditor and a PC inside of those so-called sessions. I mean, I always hate that people keep calling it a therapy. It's like, I've gone to therapy. It's nothing like audits. It's nothing like that. I mean, it took so long for me to even want to go there, because I was like, am I going to go into the same thing? Am I going to get locked up against my will? Is it going to feel so disgusting? Like, as children, we didn't feel there was a shred of therapy. Like I said before, maybe adults, consenting adults that do that shit can claim and purport that they feel very helped by the thing. They could consent to getting involved and ensnared in whatever L. Ron Hubbard pitched. But it's always the children who do not have. Are you saying people cannot change? Are all Scientologies doomed to always be wrong and stupid and never understand how bad Scientology is? That if that's true, there's no hope for any of us. No, Lorna, I'm saying people can change, but people need to come clean about what they did. People need to confront what they've done. People need to understand who the victims were in the racketeering scheme that you got involved in. And it's not personal. Don't take it personal. All of the people that are taking it personal, this is not personal. What happened to kids at an industrial size scale, what kids underage that couldn't consent, that didn't understand what in the hell a course was, that didn't understand what an ethics handling was, that didn't understand what an audit was, because they do not have the capacity to consent. That's not been acknowledged. That's not been repudiated. And yes, from the ex-Scientologists that were adults ensnaring themselves in this, it would be great to find out what you feel bad about. That is not just, oh, I was victimized by this institution, because it took all adults that were ensnared in this, that didn't raise a red flag, for this environment to proliferate. So this is not on you. This is on you. This is on Mike Winder. This is on my parents. This is on every last adult. And yes, we need to see more responsibility, more accountability being taken by the ex-Scientologists. It's not good enough to just leave and then hope better luck next lifetime, including for all the kids that are there. And unfortunately, there is no examples that I can find of the repudiation being done. And it feels like we, the kids that suffered this BS abuse, now have to bypass all of y'all and tell you what was wrong, where it should actually be all of you getting together. If 200 of you walked into the FBI's office and said, we are here to be cooperating witnesses, we know what we saw inside of those hotels, we contributed to this culture, we brought kids ourselves, we ensnared them, we abused them, we recorded it, we video recorded it, we made it all normal. I mean, yes, there is a way for you all to change. It's called, it shouldn't be happening to a single shred of child today. And all of these points that I bring up shouldn't be being brought up by me. It should be being brought up by every single person that saw what they saw. I can only speak from where I stood, from where I saw. I was part of the so-called technical division from Debbie Cook. I was at the epicenter of the disgustingness. Couldn't be more disgusted with why in the hell I ended up there as a 12-year-old being trained to do this on adults. And I wasn't the only 12-year-old. There were other 12-year-olds being done to groom me to think that this was safe. So yes, the adults, all adults, they're all in a bucket. If you became part of if you were an L. Ron Hubbard sycophant, you are going to have a problem. If you follow that rhetoric without a shred of critical thinking skills for yourself, it's not good. Now, can you do something about it? Yes, we would love to see more people doing something about it. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. You could take accountability. You can take responsibility. You can see from your position what you can do to actually change. I mean, if you have this clinical psychology degree, I'm sure you can put all that information to use and to filter out how sadistic and unthinkable the L. Ron Hubbard playbook really was. Confront the evil of the playbook. Confront it for what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. Like, again, all of you can blame L. Ron Hubbard for turning you into monsters, into child-abusing monsters. Maybe you didn't sign up for that. Maybe you didn't want that. But you know what? The children were there with unfettered access. So every single person individually knows what they did, how they did it, how much stuff they did to kids, how much stuff they witnessed on kids. Everybody knows. Every single Scientologist knows. So whoever is involved needs to raise their confrontive evil and actually figure out what in the hell they've done as a collective of adults. If you were an adult there, as a collective, not just on you, it's on you and all your peers. Every single grown adult that you interacted with inside of those hotels and commercial buildings had something to do with it. You know, I mean, hopefully you weren't like a Debbie Cook staff member level. I mean, again, the pyramid scheme goes up. The ones here at the top are the most unhinged criminal Ghislaine Maxwell's and Jeffrey Epstein's of the situation. And then it goes down and down and down and down. But even all the people down here, you all were part of a culture. You were in a cult that propped up a culture of abuse, a culture of systemic institutionalized abuse where all minors were sadistically abused for no reason. No one was saving a world. And yes, today we have to ask those hard questions and make these points because, again, there's no safeguard for kids. Everything that was done to us inside of those hotels is still being done as we speak. So I understand that my message is not what people want to hear. I get it. I'm not here to be popular. I'm just literally here to expose the facts and to raise the concerns that I wish someone would have been raising for me when I was stuck in that hotel being abused in unthinkable, disgusting ways. So I hope that clarifies that for you and for any other Scientology, ex-Scientologist that feels you're getting attacked. You're getting brought to reality. Your delusion is getting popped. So we're doing you a solid. It is called literally tough love, if you will, because again, it's like not waking up to the facts isn't doing any children stuck at the hotels any favor. So yes, this is not personal. You didn't personally, I don't have anything personal with you whatsoever. I'm just explaining how this problem is much bigger than it's purported to be, because we've seen it time and time again that people can walk out, but then there's not enough done to stop what was being done inside of the hotels, especially to kids. And as long as we're on the year 2024 with no guardrails in place, then I would say, yes, the record shows that the efforts to make this stop are abysmal. And it shouldn't just be up to us, the kids that were essayed starting at age literally 11 to now have to be making these points and have to come here every day. I feel everyone can make something from their own individual point. And, you know, it's called, you know, use your clinical psychology degree. I think that's a great degree to put to use and to really study, you know, the misinformation and really to start wrapping it out, like, you know, peeling the onion, so to speak. You know, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And there's a lot for people to confront. So I hope that makes sense. Kids cannot consent. That's the bottom line. That's why we are sounding the alarm code red. And as long as kids are being told that they can consent, that they're just like adults, then we have to continue to dispel that complete and utter, you know, BS. Just so you know, I'm so thankful that I had a wonderful childhood, and I feel bad for those who didn't. Every child needs adults in their life that support, protects, and loves them. Thank you, just so you know, and thank you for listening to this, because I know it's not easy to witness this and to have to sit here and connect all of these dots. I did see somebody earlier in the comments saying how, you know, it's hard to go down this rabbit hole because it's so dark. So I appreciate how you are all showing up for us in this year 2024, that you are becoming informed advocates, that you're getting educated, that you're understanding for yourselves what the problem is. And again, it's like, don't take my word. I mean, there's so many other SBTV creators that are talking from, you know, everyone can just only speak from their vantage point, what they saw, what they witnessed, you know. I happen to have a very, very horrendous experience, given that I was put at the epicenter of the most sadistic, gross, disgusting aspect of Scientology, which is audits, courses, and ethics. So in the Nassar case, it was hundreds of females only. Yeah. In that one it was, but you know, there's a lot. Yeah. Hello, Pasparandra. Thank you for joining us. This is disturbing already. I know. But I appreciate you holding space. Instead of asking where's Shelly, we should start asking where's Debbie Cook. That woman needs to be in prison. Yeah, Debbie Cook is in Texas, you guys. Debbie Cook is living it up in Texas, getting paid on a monthly basis to keep her mouth shut, to not be a cooperating witness, to not do what is right, to not repudiate anything that she did, to continue living in delusion, and to also secure the delusion for all the other adults that were just as grotesque as her. Because again, they just have no incentive to come clean for the sake of ensuring no other child gets abused. And it has to do with the fact that these people were unhinged, degenerate slave owners of children. So I'm not holding my breath for Debbie Cook to come clean on anything. She's already shown us on the public record that she was always just out for a paycheck and to shut the F up quickly so she didn't have to help anybody but herself. So there's literally no excuse for Debbie Cook. It is 100% unethical to abuse minors. We shouldn't have to say children exist because these thick, you know what, are too stupid to believe it. Correct. I mean, again, it's like there cannot be a hotel where adults get to infantilize themselves and go, oh yeah, once upon a time, all the children that come inside this hotel are adults. Okay, you guys, is everyone in agreement? Everyone here agrees that children are adults? Okay, great. Okay, then we're all going to be safe to abuse them. I mean, that's what's getting called out about that system. I mean, that's what ended up happening. The FBI is still doing nothing as children are being trafficked across the border. These children are traumatized and our government is doing nothing to stop it. We're horrified every day. So keep taking notes, FBI, because again, it's the buck stops with y'all. Y'all are the ones that have the literal job to figure out how to help kids. So use your degrees, use your education, use your critical thinking skills, use your power to help kids. Use your power to actually do something about it so that we can have confidence that the laws aren't just a bunch of platitudes. Early Ricer, thank you, Serge, for being our brave spokesperson. Thank you, Simone, and all gymnastics women for speaking out. Politicians, stop being deaf, dumb, and blind. Thank you, Early Ricer. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we all can be spokespersons and advocates for our own inner child that was left behind with no one advocating. You guys, I mean, that's the only silver lining about any of this, that we are now fierce advocates, that we do know what in the hell happened, that we're not going to be played dumb with, and that we will literally put anyone in their place that wants to play dumb with us. I mean, not anymore. We're not here to people please or anything like that. So we're here to, again, bring awareness to what the problem is. The problem is systemic and institutionalized, and it's happening at an industrial size scale. So whatever needs to be done to rein it back is what we're here to do. Lorna, right? The IRS is guilty of being giant wimpy. Yes. Well, and again, right, it's like that New York Times article is just mind-boggling, because in what world did the IRS know that Scientology was running programs to utterly destroy them? They didn't do anything to change. Nothing of what L. Ron Hubbard said changed. But then all of a sudden they're so chummy, cozy. And, oh, yeah, you're going to save a world. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to the IRS. And then, again, we're calling out all the incentives that were done for, these Scientology parents that got told, oh, tell us about your child abuse and we'll hold it secret for you. We'll launder it. We'll float it. So I really want to thank all of you guys for sitting here with us and learning about this part of the FBI, because we're going to be doing a deep dive into this, because we are going to start connecting all the dots that aren't getting connected, and we are going to continue advocating for no more kids in Scientology, Kids cannot consent to what L. Ron Hubbard wrote down on his disgusting writing and pieces of paper and rhetoric that's extremist to the nth degree. We're sounding the alarm, code red. We need all Scientology parents to wake the F up. We need all ex-Scientologists to wake the F up. We need everyone to do their part to become cooperating witnesses, to take themselves to the FBI, to speak to the facts, to write affidavits that are truthful, and literally hold themselves accountable so that the abuse can stop. If that never happens, then these people will continue to get away with having unfettered access to minors, and no one is going to have a problem about it. That's a problem. That's a problem to all of us that had to withstand that child abuse. It's not optional for us that this happens on a daily basis. It's not optional for us that no one is calling it out. It's not optional for us. Like, we are calling it out. We are disgusted. We are appalled. We are literally beyond the beyond nauseated, because it's nauseating. Like, child abuse is probably the most disgusting thing you can possibly think of. I mean, I cannot even imagine something more disgusting. But the power lies in us gaining our voice and speaking truth to power and asking the tough questions and making the right points, because we know what it's going to take to go up against these lies. And we see how hard it's been for us to advocate. Imagine that we went through it. Imagine that we survived. Imagine that we lived to tell. Imagine that we've gone through so much therapy to be able to be on the other side of this coin. And with our oxygen mask on, we are now fighting back and pushing back on all this BS narratives, all of this status quo that's been done to protect identities of people that don't want to face the music. They don't want to face the facts. They don't want to face how horrible it was for minors, because, again, it's just not going to be sustainable for them to want to realize what in the hell happened. But I do have faith that there's people that are, joining us on these lives and also waking up, because I've had a few interactions that I would like to tell you guys about without naming names, but a few interactions of some adults that are having a hard time, and that's okay. But you know what? They are taking accountability. They're showing receipts. They're coming with goods. So what else can anyone expect? I mean, that's what's being asked to do. Do the right thing. No one's going to be mad at you for doing the right thing. People are going to be mad AF if they see that you continue to be lying, if you continue to enable this dysfunction, then people will have a problem. So for those that reached out to me, I acknowledge them trying to do something about it. I acknowledge their contribution in terms of receipts that they're bringing. I mean, that's actually putting their literal money where their mouth is, you guys. It's not enough to say, I really want to save a world. It's like, what are you doing to change it? How can you contribute to actually change what has been allowed to happen for decades, what was normalized at an industrial size scale? Because we will need people that can have that cognition and that flip and be like, yep, it is. I'm calling it out. It was incorrect. I'm appalled. I'm disgusted. It's nauseating. Cannot be done to more kids. I mean, that's the right attitude. Everything else is a whitewash, and everything else is a, what in the literal hell? I mean, it is, again, going into the year 2024, you guys. I think that, I think we can stop this problem if we really are coming together, and if we're coming to get educated to understand what aspects of this problem need the most advocacy. The ones that are most at risk inside the problem of Scientology are the minors. So I thank all of you for watching and educating yourself with me today. We're going to be doing some art later today with Lara FM. So make sure you can catch that live. And we're going to continue living our best lives and advocating for kids. I thank all of you for being here with me today. And I will see you all really soon. Bye-bye.